Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Void podcast. It's Enrique and Vince here. Welcome to another week where we get to speak to you about leadership. And Vince, I'm so excited about this very episode. We continue on the questions that we pose to leadership, and now we get to discuss all the stuff that we dug up to answer those questions.
Dug up indeed. And today we have the great pleasure to talk a little bit about one thing that really can make a huge financial impact on an organization that one or two leaders can do. And that question was, what is one behavior or trait that you have seen derail more leaders' career? Not only the career, but against that financial impact, right? And the 5 things came about that surfaced was ego and pride, ethical and moral behaviors, no care/focus, know-it-all, acting like a know-it-all, and ignoring boundaries. So those are 5 that came out. And I'll jump right in, if that's all right, with the first one with the ego and pride. So let us understand that there's no spoiler alert that everyone has an ego, right? We all have an ego, no matter who you are. Don't deny it, because promise you it exists in you. What is it really? It is a feeling, and I'll read it, a feeling inside you that makes you feel different or special than anyone else. For an ego, it also can be related to self-image and self-esteem. So an ego also accounts to a lot of the relationship issues you have, both personally and professionally. So it starts first and foremost with the awareness that you have one that is affecting either morale or relationships. So you have to understand that's first. But here's like the top tips of what derails your ego and pride. First, you have to understand that you should always start with the business needs first. What are the business needs versus your own needs? It's always about the business first. You as an individual, you have to try to be more humble, practice humility and letting go. Letting go. And in that vein, forgiveness is not a weakness. And we talked about that time and time again. That's a strength. That's courage. So forgiveness is good and a positive, and it takes courage and letting go. Practice honesty, being open. Surrender the need to control is huge for folks that toggle from management to leadership, or just don't trust in their employees. So surrender the need to control. There's always a benefit of being silent. Enjoy that silence in conversations and opportunities to really think back, think positive, practice gratitude, the inner happiness of self. And I think the last one is asking the correct type of questions, because we ourselves, we're judgmental a lot about ourselves. So versus using a judgmental frame of reference, learning frame of reference, right? Because you got to ask what happened or what can I do versus, oh, I'm such a failure, or why are they so stupid, for instance. So use an asking, learning style of questions versus judgmental. So those pretty much are good tips, I believe, that will help you with the ego and pride issue.
Now, I'll tell you, when we were going through discussing the different things that came up, the 5 topics that embody this question of, the traits that we've seen that derails leaders. I started looking at those and hey, like I say, full disclosure, right? In my life or in my leadership life, these have been either challenged or actually things that I've dealt with, right? Because you mentioned earlier, right? We all have some level of ego, some level of pride, some more than others, some that pride actually allows them to be the best person they can be, and some it becomes a monster, right? It really does. There's one verse that I remember that I learned very early that says, pride comes before destruction and a haughty spirit before the fall. Right. So very, very simple one sentence that describes in detail what happens when pride and ego gets out of hand, because it really can. Right. So another thing I remember, I used to tell my sailors when I was in as a senior enlisted leader, that if your agenda overruns the command's agenda or the company's agenda, you've gone astray, right? You've gone astray because you mentioned earlier, right? Things should support the company's vision, mission, whatever it may be, guiding principles if you have them. But ego and pride, if not placed in check, could be very costly in terms of the high turnover that you'll have, because people just can't stand you. They can't take one more ego trip, or the fact that you may bump heads with another leader, and so they leave, or you get fired because of it. So be careful in this particular one, and we have four more to go through, but this particular one, when you're talking about longevity as a leader, ego and pride must be in check. There are areas and times where a little bit of pride in what you do, it goes a long way, but it can't be just a monstrous thing that overtakes, not only your leadership but other people's leadership.
No, I totally agree, you Enrique. It's all about self in this matter here, and your role as a leader is to influence. So, very important points you made. Uh, the second one is, this one right here, ethical and moral behaviors. For the most part, most organizations do have clear expectations, and with the code of conduct, it defines those expectations that employee behavior should have. It's clear and simple language. That's there. If your organization doesn't have that, there's a lot of work that has to be done right up front. But those that already have it, and those leaders out there, you should be modeling the definitely the ethical and moral behavior, because it starts with you, and it trickles down from there. So that's key number one. But the $1 billion question that experts have reviewed and asked is, why are employees so afraid to speak up when they see an ethical or moral behavior and unethical issue going on? And because folks tend to not say nothing. And sometimes such a minor issue can have serious consequences. Goes back to that point of the financial contributions of an unethical issue or dilemma or moral dilemma that occurs. Because guess what? It's part of business. It's part of business to have sometimes some ethical issues or moral issues. So you have to not have, you sound the alarm is just normal. So you have to view it as a normalcy versus, oh God, what's going to happen, and reprisal and so on. But for leaders, you have opportunities here to seek a coach, to seek counseling, or be at the ready with your HR. But most importantly, integrity first. That, I think, speaks volumes on you as a leader. We have been drilled on integrity in the military, and hence why it's important, and for the mission, for yourself, and for every walk of life, to have that integrity first, not, especially when nobody's looking.
That's so important. As you was talking, I start thinking about what really comprises ethical and moral behavior. Because this is not a company thing, right? Uh, the company doesn't issue you like they do, your checking bag with the goodies, and they don't issue you a little a pamphlet that, if you engage that, your ethics and your moral behavior is going to be in check. That's something that you bring to the table. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Uh, the best of leaders will be challenged in both these areas, ethics and morality. And and there's any leader out there that tells you, oh no, I'm look, they may be today, But I'll guarantee you that sometime along their life, they have been challenged with ethical and moral decision making to the positive side, or they have failed in one way or another, ethically or morally, because there's no perfect person. What we try to do here, and why we're bringing it up, actually, the public brought it up. We're just talking about it. So what we're trying to do is um, remind you that ethics and morality is something you bring to the table. It is not something that you're going to get from your neighbor. It's not something that you're going to get from your leader, or any other leader. It's something that has to be inherent in you. It has to be solid in you. Because you mentioned, Vince, the opportunity day to sound the alarm. To most people don't, because they're challenged with this in another area. So, so why am I going to say this when, this could happen over here to me? And so what we're trying to bring to light is the fact that uh, ethics and morality is something that has to be worked on every day. It's
Mhm.
a personal thing that you bring, and the more people in your company that that make sure that those areas are tight and right, the better your company will be.
Absolutely. The longevity of the company, of the culture, of the productivity, everything falls a line and racks and stack perfectly once you have that foundational component set in stone. So that's great. Great advice. Um, Drives us to another point, which was mentioned. What other things can derail a leader? And here is not caring, or not having focus, right? And I could see two sides to this in the focus arena. One thing, a true story about focusing had to do with my environment, and my desk, my office, the lighting, which I didn't think much of it, but having that external environment aligned helps you focus as well. Not only yourself as a person, but you also got to think of, hey, do I have the right environment in the workstation, table, desk, uh, um, computer, lighting? All that plays into the mood of your focus. So just want to highlight that. But going to your internal factors of what can you do is one thing is first posture, because slouching, just like your kids slouch or in school, it already automatically defaults to, oh, you don't care, you're not listening. So posture plays into it, even if you're not with anyone, or if you're with employees, you have to have a good posture. It connects to moods and your behavior. Um, and people perceive it as, again, like I mentioned, you don't care as an example. Do a better job. Always try to do a better job prioritizing your day, because then we sometimes tend to lose focus on what's essential, and chase a rabbit hole, chase down the scroll down the rabbit hole, and before you know it, you lost 2 hours. Working free of distractions is always a big key for all of us, because we all inundated with information overload, microsecond, quickly. So you have to maintain that, and that's up to you to be free of distractions. uh One another external element I thought was valuable here is, we sometimes drink coffee to stay focused, plenty pots of coffee at times. But drinking water and eating healthy snacks, having great nights of sleep does factor in to how you approach the next day, and the individuals of either caring and or focus. I think we all have a great heart, but these elements play into the equation of how you can lose focus, and sometimes not the sense of not having a caring ounce in your body, which we all know you do and have.
Yeah, there's a big difference between carefree and careless, right? It's a big difference. But when it comes to leadership, the moment one of your team members feels that you don't care, um, it gives them an opportunity to express the very same thing. And then imagine if you had project that needs to be done, and you just share that with your team, and your team can care. No, they can, or don't have a care for it. Uh, you know, typically, the person that's responsible for it will pay, but ultimately the leadership is the one that has to account for that. So you have to be careful that body language of that you don't care. And yesterday I told somebody, the body language tells the truth about what you're really thinking. so you got to be careful, because you could be saying, yeah, I care, but your body says another thing, and it's a totally contradictory comment, and people know. They don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that one out. And just like you said, focus in leadership, you have to create an environment where focus is something that you show. Uh, and in leadership, everything you show is what your team is going to give, and is what your team is going to produce. And so hopefully, focus and caring are one of the things that won't derail you. But if you don't have that, we heard from the people, that's usually what derails you, right? So, and it's just astonishing. I had shared with you before, right? The reason why I went into this type of business was because I saw a lot of derailing activity in organizations and in leadership, and I want to help. And so that's what we're doing with this podcast. We're trying to help. But I know we have another one that I just love.
Right. So that's true. So, what other element derails leader is acting or being a know-it-all. That's the next one that folks came up with. And interesting, going back to the body language, or the body awareness of your body, not caring, you kind of lean back, cross your arms. Here you are, you leaning forward, kind of like, what do you got to say? Like testing the waters or pushing forward. So interesting how your body just not being neutral can send off these signals. So being a know-it-all, you probably crossing your arms maybe as well, but also going forward in their face, like what? It's not a duel. This is a relationship building, a bridge, not walls. So understand that you have to back down sometimes, because not backing down, pushing your agenda over and over, is not beneficial at all, folks. And try to think about that. And if that's you, you have to find a way to get that constructive feedback, to learn the importance, how you're eroding and eradicating either high turnover, zero productivity, oh, and just, I'm trying hard, but you guess what? You're probably not trying the right way. You have to look at yourself in that one. And which you will know if you really listen, which we speak about all the time. If you're really listening, you will know the meaning of what people are saying based on your decisions or not lack of decisions. So you're listening to who is speaking with the respect that you want from them as well. And don't be ready for a comeback. This is really just embracing their decision and understanding, and don't have that plan in your head already, ready to fire off. But that's definitely not going to get you many places. If you want that, just be a company of one, and deal with that. But this world, you need folks and teams. So please be aware of that. And goes to the listening component, goes back to also asking the right questions, not the judging questions. Mostly, hey, this is what I think you said. Is that correct? Versus, oh, you said this and that's wrong. So we're not going. So definitely, and don't answer your own questions either. Don't ask one and respond to it. Definitely not a great way. Two-way communication, two people, not just one. And lastly, personal leadership is growth, folks. It requires growth. If you're learning something new, not only thinking about that newness, is also learning how to do it and say, I'm learning here too. I will love your help. And that's going to go a long way. and which is the last one, which is humility, and drives into respecting each team member equally. And they are there for a purpose as well as you are.
It's funny in my head. I'm thinking of a comment uh, uh, that I like to share is I don't know much, but this one thing I know, I don't know it all. And if you do feel like you know it all, go ask one of your teammates to see if you do. Yeah, and even listen, it's funny, right? So let's make a scenario. Even if you knew it all, you can't do it all. You still need somebody, right? And and like you mentioned, if you know it all, hey, be a team of one, an organization of one, but you still need somebody. And so you have to be, going back to ego and pride. You, as a leader, you have to know that you could probably know a lot, right? You are the subject matter expert, and that's great because guess what? If you're being paid for a technician, that's what you're being paid for, to be a subject matter expert. But if you're a subject matter expert and you happen to be a leader, you got to let somebody else become the subject matter expert. And so that's where the divide begins as to you doing everything or you bringing up someone else to do it and take your place. Because if you're not bringing up somebody to take your place, you're doing a disservice. But knowing it all or acting like you know it all, it's a huge deterrent to group growth. It's a huge deterrent to a great environment in your company. And people will tell you, if you really want the truth, go ahead and ask. Just don't be hurt. Don't let your pride get hurt when you really get the truth. But this is one that I've seen in action, and one that I cringe at, and Lord forbid that I ever think that. And that's why I always like to say, I don't know much, but this one thing I know, I don't know it all.
Man with great wisdom right there. I appreciate hearing that. Uh, which drives to the last thought of what folks came up with, what really derails leaders is ignoring boundaries. And when I thought about ignoring boundaries, is first you have to clarify what do you want for yourself as well as a leader, because this is two-way here. A, ignoring boundaries as far as getting folks come at you all at once and wanting your assistance and help. You gotta really think about it. Are you really leading in that scenario, or are you helping them manage a project and being part of that project? So that's the difference between a leader and a manager. So but if you're the one on folks involved in their or in their space, in their boundaries, you have to also understand that one, what you have to honor their worth as well as you honor your own worth to understand what boundaries should be in place for you and your team is knowing them. You have to really know each other because there's definitely people have different types of boundaries. But when you establish boundaries and when they establish boundaries, this should be realistic overall, not far-fetched, just be realistic. um Always the key here is again is communication. If something does, if your employees, they should be free to communicate if they feel you are ignoring their boundaries, and vice versa if you feel they're ignoring yours. Is communication is the key, and it's all intertwined with the respect for either party here. We're all in the same team. We all have to respect each other, have those healthy boundaries, and be able to express when they are unhealthy and something is really cascading or hurting each other's boundaries there.
Yeah, one of the things we have in service is the fraternization policy, right? And everybody will do that. They'll cringe or they'll say, "Ooh, yeah, that's a problem," because the ignoring of boundaries is the reason why that has come to light. Uh, it doesn't make people feel good to see these boundaries being watered down for a couple or a handful of folks, but walls come up for others. And so, one thing my mom was good at, and she taught me, was respect, and mostly respect for elders. And she's like, I don't care if they're one day older than you, they're older than you, right? So you respect them. And so I took that into service, but it was easy in service. There's some things, there's some boundaries you just don't cross, and that's just it. But coming out and dealing with just non-military, normal citizens of the U.S. Uh, I and even in the military, I saw some boundaries being, kind of watered down. It creates uh, inequality. That's what it does. It creates inequality or favoritism or a perception of that you are not good enough like that other person, right? And so, a very hard lesson to learn when you don't create healthy boundaries. And healthy boundaries are those that allow for others to show respect and get some leniency from those that you're showing respect, because that's what it is. They they show you some favor in terms of treating you and engaging you, but you understand that this is somewhere I don't want to cross, because inequality is one of the reasons why there's a lot of stuff going on right now. And
Mm.
so you got to be careful if you're in leadership that you don't start creating an environment of inequality because boundaries have been loosened in the wrong way. And when we talk about derailing traits for leaders, this is one of them that's up there. And now all of these were great. All of these were great and on point, because, like I said earlier, right, leadership will get challenged with one of these or another, if not all of these, in your lifetime. And so it's very important to understand that, along with setting a great environment, you also have to check yourself that in some other way you're not setting a bad environment, because usually that's what happens, right? But great, this is a great point.
Oh yeah, I totally, absolutely agree. And at times you have to, as a leader, have these difficult and tough conversations, and even if they're uncomfortable, because to our earlier point, ethical and moral behavior, it could be something so small, but it'll, like a cancer, it might, or a pandemic, it spreads. So you have to have those conversations. You have to adhere to the rules and regulations for a purpose, and that's why they're there. That's why we have speed limits, folks. That's why we have certain things in place. And if you see something, you have to say something, as TSA says. But obviously, it's sometimes a hard discussion, but it's a warranted and needed discussion. So we hope you got we see some value out of these discussions, this discussion primarily today. We're here to assist in any way, shape, or form. If you have any questions, again, we're here every Wednesday. Send us an email, drop us a line. We'll be more than happy to entertain that. Again, at uh, the leadership void at gmail.com is one way to reach us. You can reach us through LinkedIn, our LinkedIn pages as well. So feel free to reach out. We'll be more than happy to entertain your thoughts and questions.
Yeah, and if you're a company out there that would like to sponsor us in one way or be on the show, please email us at that email. Uh, if you'd like to share your swag, your sweat, your T-shirt, a mug, or something for us to have on the show, we would gladly receive it and to display that. But we're very, very interested in next week. Next week is going to be a good one. Not that none of these have been, but this is an individual here locally that has had a huge impact in both of our lives.
Oh yeah, we're very honored to have Ricardo Garcia representing Veterans Entrepreneurship Initiative, which is VEI for short. We love acronyms, folks. For the most part, we both have been blessed with this great organization. Their mission is to empower and support veterans entrepreneur through business guidance, education, and mentorship. We're so excited to have them starting and kicking off the next month, July 1st, with Ricardo Garcia. So stay tuned for that, please, folks. It's going to be great.
And stay tuned every Wednesday. We come to you in the morning and we release a new podcast. We're so blessed to be able to share all this information with you, to dive into these questions and to have folks come on the show and interview what they're doing in our local community. And hey, we've had some that are from other states, and stand by because that's also coming. I don't want to, the cat out of the bag, but we're branching out and we're bringing you guests from around the states that have had a great impact, not only as a veteran, but in business world and in their community. So stand by for those, but tune in every Wednesday morning. We'll have a new show for you. And we thank you. We thank you for joining us. And we just wish you all the best.
Take care, folks.